Hello beautiful person, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering 5 game-changing mixing tips. I got the idea to do this video because in yesterday's stream a subscriber expressed that mixing was really confusing to them, especially dealing with frequencies. As leader of the dope fam, I simply cannot have this, so strap in because I got you, twin. Grab the free 14 drum kit, join my Discord server, peep my EPK if you're new, and let's get started. Tip number 1 is to learn what unmasking is. Unmasking is the process of identifying overlapping frequencies between tracks and using equalization adjustments to reduce the overlapping. It's my honest belief that this is the single most important concept in mixing, and it's definitely the most important one for my personal mixing philosophy. Now, I could nerd out here about why that is, but I gotta keep this moving for real, you know what I'm saying? But check out my blog or the forum section of the Discord server if you really do want to nerd out about it though. Anyways, I spent a lot of time and even more money learning this so that you don't have to, so just trust me. Frequency masking is the problem, and you fix it with equalization. And that takes us to tip number 2, which is using analog shelves instead of high passes and low passes. Again, the deeper reasons are nerdy, to say the least. But the simple explanation is that this is a harsher cut than this. The rule of thumb is that the harsher the cut, the less natural or transparent something sounds. And I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I typically opt for as much transparency in my mix as possible, so learning this one was huge for me. And we can use this in tip number 3, which is to always unmask your melodies. So we've all seen this one before, right? Like in every tutorial. But now you understand why this type of movement is important, and you understand how to apply this knowledge to basically everything else you do in your mix. It's frequency masking. Particularly in this instance, you want to unmask the low end frequencies from the melody so the low end from the 808 and the kick can be less obscured. You now also know the best way to unmask with analog shelves as opposed to high passes and low passes. So I'm actually working on a beat right now, so I'll just show you a demonstration using that. Right now the melody and the 808 are soloed. And I've got the parametric EQ2 open already, and you can see the frequency distribution and nothing's EQ'd. So it's as simple as taking the bands on the default setting and EQing out some of that low end as you're listening. If you really want to hear what's going on, you can mute your 808 really quickly. So if I come over here and mute my sub bus and then come back into this parametric EQ2, I can really get a feel for what I'm removing. Now it's super important on the low end, but it can also be useful on the high end too. And again, you're just kind of taming frequencies. And a lot of times it adds a dope timbre, at least to my melodies, when I tame a little bit of the high end frequencies. We'll talk about a tip pretty soon where we can use other bands in a different way, but this is one specific way that I tend to use this. I can come to my melody bus, go to this equalizer in neutron and equalize even more in cascade, and now it's sounding really clean. And again, we're just using an analog shelf. Tip number 4 is to properly unmask your 808s with EQ. When mixing low-end sounds like bass, 808s, and kicks, you can use a high-pass filter, or remember, we use analog shelves in this case, to remove unwanted frequencies. Now, this helps you cut out unnecessary rumble that most sound systems can't reproduce. And I guess it's not to say that the sound systems can't reproduce it. It will try its best, but what's gonna get pushed out is muddy trash that reduces the quality of your track. And the thing is that muddy and overpowering lows can instantly ruin your mix, especially on bigger speakers. So here's how I've learned to deal with these pesky frequencies. So the first thing is taming the low end, and we can do that with the default setting on the fruity parametric EQ2. We'll just grab band 1. You kind of naturally understand that there's a lot of low end rumble here, and then you're kind of just listening to see if you can hear right there. I just kind of heard it. Just taking a bit of that mud that a lot of new producers misinterpret as power and punch, and kind of getting that out of the 808. And then whenever I'm using a super buzzy 808 like this with timbre on the high end, I'll kind of just, again, doing something similar to what I do with the melody, right? Just using an analog shelf and rolling some of that off, literally just using the bands to reduce the volume, but by frequency. Now, a really cool one that I like is doing a dip right around 200 hertz. The really quick explanation for this is that a lot of cool instruments, pretty much anything that you like pianos, guitars, harps, strings, have a lot of character and body that happens here going up to around 500. And so this dip here is very, very strategic for just getting you to maintain the power in your low end and to still accentuate the dopest frequencies of it without having it mask over the dopest frequencies of your actual melody and even vocals and stuff like that. Because without getting too nerdy, a lot of the fundamental character for really cool sounds also happens around this frequency too. Another area that I like to do this is with my kicks. Now I usually won't do the 200 hertz dip for the kicks, but I will still try to roll off some of that low end because I've really noticed that I've been DJing a lot more, and I've noticed that especially on super big speakers, this can be so helpful, trust me. Just clean it up, and it allows you to get more gain out of it too. Alright, and lastly, tip number 5 is to use comparative equalization for precise unmasking between tracks. Now, I don't know if this is like an actual concept, I kind of just made this up in my head canon, but all it is comparing frequency distribution between two signals, and then using equalization on both sounds based on that analysis to unmask frequencies that I want to accentuate. I found this very useful, especially when I'm making melodies, so let me show you that really quickly. So you start by listening to your melody and thinking about how you want everything to sound in context, so let's do that. So I actually like the way everything's masking together so far. It's really nice in texture, but I want to see if I can scoop out some space from the synth so that that plucked music box kind of just sits in there a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is go to the pluck and listen to its frequency distribution and really look at it. This is where the spectrographic stuff can really come in handy. So I'm noticing actually like around 200 to like 700 is really where it's doing a lot of work for this sound. Okay, noted. So now let's open up an EQ on the synth and take a look at that. Right, so it's performing a lot in that frequency too. So if I want to create space by leveraging my understanding of frequency masking, then I'm going to want to do an EQ dip around here so that that bell sits a little bit better. So let's do that as we listen. And then I can play with this band to get it to shine a little bit more in the other frequencies. Same right here. This shit sounds so good, bro. Now that you understand the foundational concept of my mixing method, you might be ready to try the full process. So check out this video appearing on the screen now if you want to learn that, and I'll see you there. Peace.